Okay, this bead, this bead was clearly dented, but the shape of this side was pretty well intact, meaning that the form right at the point where it broke here was consistent past the center line. From about here all the way around, this whole section was cut out. Much of this roof was cut out because this was crushed, and I had to stretch the body up and get it back into form, into shape. So what I've done is I've made a profile gauge. I identified the center line, which you can see in the hint right there. I put that on and ran that profile across to there. And then I flipped the profile over, much the same way I made that bead. I flipped the profile over, took the center line, and copied it across. And it was very, very, very close. In fact, the top was right on. So how do I know that? I'll explain in a minute. So then anyway, I traced the line on, then I taped it off here, and then I ran a blue vinyl tape across the bottom. Okay? So what I'm doing now is I cut the profile. So that I can, I'll have to clean some of this mud off, but the whole point is I cut the profile so that I can just basically clean up that edge. And a little bit of history, where I made that bead, it pulled together pretty good and strong after weld, causing a lot of, this metal tightened up a lot, but I had to work it, as you well know. One of the things that occurred in this area, the bead flattened. So as I was working this metal, I decided to make this profile gauge, and I ran it across here, and it was stretched for about 4 inches in here. And you can see some of the tapping that I did here. I had to take and dolly this together, and eventually I realized that I wasn't going to get it together. I was pushing out, dollying. So then I just cut a slit, and then closed it and welded it, and it shrunk in. It shrunk in well. So my width is good, but now I just simply am taking and putting a little filler in and dragging this across. And now, I've got some dingleberries that I'll just need to take and sand off. Had a little something underneath the tape there. I can always re-pull that. But the point being is I'm going to do this a couple of times on both sides, and then I'll make a sanding block out of wood. Hopefully, I don't know, not hopefully, but somewhere in the neighborhood of, 4 to 6 inches long, and then I'll put a piece of sandpaper, probably 2 inches wide, in it, because then that'll follow that radius, right? Because the sandpaper will take a certain thickness, so I'll just have just enough room to block across there and smooth that out. That's the plan. Okay, we can see now, I drug that first coat in the last video. Now I just drug a second coat across it with the profile gauge. And this all changes. This is considerably flatter. You can see it transitions. It transitions as it went around that mold to flat. relatively flat to a very large radius here. And so I'm not that concerned about this transitions to flat. This is all got to get sanded out here, but and then to that radius. There's going to be a little bit of build on here, so I may go in and initially start this with fiberglass like I did this. But we can already see that that shape is starting to really follow the body. So it's looking good. The symmetry is there. And I'm getting very close. So, of course, when you drag, you know, you don't want to make a bunch of mud. I made probably a pile about that big around. And I'm dragging it across. And I'll continue to drag it across. Now, this is more elliptical than it is round. And I know this. And probably before I've identified that, I should say. And so I capture the top and the bottom in my profile gauge, as I showed you before, and can show you again. I'm grabbing the top and bottom of the profile, but I'm letting light through the top. Okay, so I can make, when I do the sanding block for it, I can flatten that top side just a little bit too. So I'm very happy with how it turned out. And I think it's going to work out very well. So, and of course I'll have to tie it in. I got to finish getting around these corners. And you can see this mark right here. That's where the end of that pattern, that's where I wanted to go to the end, because it starts to, let me see here, right there. No, right here, right here. That's where I get start to get interference. Well, if I hold it up against here, right now I can't move it because it's widening out right here. And so I identified that on both sides using the pattern so that I know where to stop, right? Because that's where I start to transition to that shape, and that might be a paper pattern shape in here and here, so I can trace and make sure that I get it exact. Time to go to work and let her cure out. Hey guys. Okay, so I use this profile gauge, and that's realistically 4 or 5 applications. So I'm not building up. I just pulled the tape off of the last application, and I continue to run a new strip of tape. And again, we know it's starting to flatten out here. So in this instance, I went 24 inches from the center line on each side. You say, holy cow, that's some serious buildup, Fred. This one is still got a considerable amount of light, but and this will be built up too. But this profile will start to dress in. So all I'm doing is continuing to run this along that channel. You can see here, see that? That's where I formed this, and this was narrower than the other side. So I've got to this has got a radius down to that line. But once I get this whole area done, again, I'll do a profile on a tube, and I'll sand it. And then I go into the last application. So I'm going to get another application on and continue to comb it. The nice thing is that as each application goes on, it it cures and provides me a new foundation for this, so it just gets straighter and straighter. You can see here where I was riding on top, or in this case it's not, but sometimes a strip of tape gets stuck in there. You can see there's a void right there to the edge. So what I'll do is before I lay the new tape down, I go over and inspect this whole thing, and clean that off, and then run my tape line right along that edge. So the width is extremely consistent. My lights are relatively close overhead, so you can see the shadow line starts to, well, I got another light right there, and I got a light right here. Okay. And then I got that plenum there, which is shadowing some. But again, I watch my shadow line, but this is lighter because I was running out of material. So, and I can stick a light right here, right down the center, and watch the shadow line. But those are the things that when you step back and you look at it, it's gotta be, especially the bead, right? You can't have any of this. It's gotta be just dead straight. So it's coming, and I'll just keep going, slowly but surely, just keep on going. All right. What the Sam? I got a piece of wood. Pine! Okay, you can see I pulled a tape line all the way around, tape across there. I came back in and I waxed it with automotive wax over the surface of the tape, not getting wax at all, zero, none on the body. So I taped plenty far out and just carefully waxed into that area. That's a piece of wood that I attempted to route a profile on that I liked, but it was just it was too big, and it didn't give me what I wanted. So here, then I just put mud in the center of there, fill in the voids. There's not much in there. You can see on the top there a little bit, wherever the block is. And I just slid it back and forth until I removed most of the material. Some of it came out of the top, some of it came out of the bottom. Not much, 1/8 of an inch maybe. You maybe see that in there. It's probably spaced out about 1/8 of an inch. That'll give me an opportunity to sand that surface of the wood. Gently sand that down to accommodate the profile. So once this cures out, I can plop it off. I can smooth the profile. I'm gonna do a skim coat on here. I still have scratch marks here, and this is all low, just low. It needed to be filled up into this area. I stopped filling here. Got a high spot there and a high spot there. And not a high spot, but exposed metal. Sorry, exposed metal. And I need to just do a very light skim coat across here, very light skim coat across here, and then block it with 180 grit. Then just drag it nice and tight and hard with a metal trowel or a metal knife or whatever you call it. I call them knives all the time, but anyway, across there, and then block that surface out with guide coat. And again, I sanded this with guide coat, but I want this one last time because I don't want to create high spots. So skim it, block it one last time, and then come in with this riding across the surface of that body on each side, and sandpaper in there. Just some 80 grit. Just take some 80 grit and put it inside that shape. Okay? Take a utility knife or a razor blade and cut the edge off so that you're only inside. You're not on this surface. You're only on this surface. and then rub that sucker back and forth, because you got over that 6-7 inches there. You got the somewhere in there is, you know, if it's narrow, it's this shape. If it's narrower or wider, the minimum profile in there is what it's going to accommodate. I'll probably want to mark the top and the bottom. I'll experiment with it if they're identical, but this radius is pretty identical because of the profile tool. But is the profile tool identical? Wherever that is. This guy. Is that guy identical from one end to the other? This was always the top. This was always the bottom every time I dragged it. So I should identify top on here. Right? Okay. We'll let that cure. It has paste wax on it. I'll pull the tape off. Hopefully this just pops off with the tape still being on the car. If it's not, I'll have to dig it out. I may have to sand it, you know, a little bit to clean it up. But in the end, that's what I'll use for my profile. Also note, the thickness of the sandpaper, which I did measure, is 35 thousandths. It's like 33 thousandths of an inch thick. That's 60 thousandths. No, I'm wrong. It's 30 thousandths combined. 33, 35, 34 thousandths combined. So it's 15 thou thickness. So I'll need to make sure that I accommodate that after this is done. You know, in the tape, so that I'm not just riding up here and getting up to that. I need to get all the way down, and I have some exposed metal right there from testing the block yesterday, and underneath. So I want to make sure that I don't create a high spot. So we'll see how it works. When I work on these kinds of projects, I tend to find as many things as I can to make a temporary bench, and then I move them in. I just hoard them in so that I just get enough room to get a chair around. I just like to get everything within arm's reach. Housekeeping can hurt. There's a temporary bench. There's a temporary bench. There's a temporary bench. Got a temporary bench up here. I'm too lazy to walk over there. Has that ever happened to you guys? All right, it's like starting over again, isn't it? So I quickly skimmed across there, trying to fill everything into the edges. Skim coated. You can't really see now, I guess, but got my bead, got my bead sanding block, guide coat, and I'm going to block everything to 180 in hopes that, you know, I tapped a little bit of metal down here and here. If you remember from the other videos, this had a band of metal. I tapped here, but I did wind up exposing it when I was blocking. So I may need to do that. I got metal right there, and right there, right there, and right there. A hint right there. No. So now I'm going to block the whole thing with 180 in hopes that that's my final block. If not, I'll have to come back, and I'll probably use this stuff, glazing putty, unless I've got a large area, but I'll probably just use glazing putty to keep it nice and thin. That's my hope. If I need to tap this guy down or tap that guy down, then I'll just concentrate on that area. But at this point, let the 180 grit blocking commence. All right, guys. I didn't completely block around to the end or the corners. I started the corner on here, and it just is wonderful. And so basically, starting with the back, I started at the top. This is on the surface. This is a very light low. And I think the sprayable primer, sprayable feather fill, sprayable surfacer, you know, I'll put a couple coats on of a polyester sprayable and block that. I'm not happy with this metal, and I'm not happy with this metal. So I need to work those out. This I might hit when I come down with the razor blade. Everything else is just really worked out good. You can see from the guide coat, those are the areas that are misses with the filler. But again, get a razor blade and hit it. These were lows. This is nice, very nice surface. Everything here is a very nice surface. I started sanding out I had pencil marks on here, started sanding them out, but I stopped because the surface, I don't want to sit there and dish anything. It just feels so good. Same thing down here. Always happens, when you come up against a seam, the fill, can give you headaches. So this is all blocked around now, and so I'll just come in with some lightweight right there, polyester glaze, and using a razor blade, I'll touch those so they're just barely, they're about at the surface, and then I can hit them with sandpaper. All right, guys, I got her blocked out. This is all 180 grit. It worked out well, very well. Took the glaze down, gave me the edge that I was looking for around the window. Of course, I still need to finish out the picture frame part of it, but I got nice sharp edges. Nice sharp edges. I'll need to place a radius onto this, but I'll get this shape or this blocked first, right? And then that'll give me it'll give me the opportunity to see a nice clean edge that'll be sharp, and then I can work on just getting a small radius on there so it looks proper and formed. Very minor low spot. You can just a hint of feeling, and I think that's gonna go ahead and cover with that primer filler, sprayable polyester. This I'm not happy with. I think I maybe mentioned that, but this I'm not happy with. I either have to build out or tap down. I got to think about those a little bit because they're just every time I'm exposing those. I got a couple of, that always happens when you pull in this case I pulled a 4-inch. It might have been a 6, but this is a 4. But I pulled a 4-inch knife to squish and minimize the amount of material that I put in the car. But, you don't want to sit there and comb it, because then you're not going to have a surface that you'll be working on ripples and stuff. And that's what happened here. So I'll just take a razor blade, again, with that polyester glaze, and I'll hit these spots. I'll probably just over that. These, again, don't know. Same condition. There's some on the bottom. I think just that one on the bottom. Yeah, just that one on the bottom. And again, it was all glazed until I cleaned this off the surface. So I got this corner and that corner to do. I did the top. Not completed the top, but I did the top, halfway or more than halfway around the radius. And so I'll get to these, then I'll tape this off, run a line of tape right across the top of this and the bottom, and I'll start blocking this out, block that out, radius, the window, check everything, and then come over and begin working down the side. So I'll get the sides. The roof, I don't know if that'll be last. The roof is kind of one of those things where it's easier to do with the body off the car. I have to take the body off to get the bottom portion of that that band that I put on, to get the bottom portion of it welded up underneath. So I'll use maybe TIG, I don't know. I'm just struggle with that from time to time. But the point being is that I'll get that attached, sealed up, and then I can block that out, you know, and finish that whole bead up. So it's coming good. This, of course, will go very fast because I blocked the doors with the fiberglass before I put it into epoxy. I've straightened everything out, and so this will just, and then I get the picture frames done. That'll take a little time because each one of those, you know, will need to be done like that. Rinse and repeat, other side of the car, and then hit the roof. So, and then probably at some point, whether in stages or complete, I'll have to shoot it with epoxy because I'll have exposed metal, you know, in various spots. I have to hit it with the epoxy and then hit it with the primer surfacer, the filler primer, and the polyester, and then go from there. Thanks, guys. Well, I got a little surprise. I got home from work this evening. This morning was when I shot the last video. But I got in there and put that, whatever the heck you call it, on. I covered a bunch of areas where I saw like an edge like this. You know, I just wanted to make sure. And then I got in there, and when you're doing a radius, and it's a compound because it curves this way and this way, there's a tendency when you block, of course, you want to go up and up and up and up, and then you start to get past that apex of this radius, and you start to dig. And the irony was, you know, why are these in the same, that one there and that one there, and in the same spot? Well, that's a good sign, you know, realistically, is because I'm hitting the original body at the point where that original stamping die started that radius. So I got that low spot filled, and I slowly blocked across here with 180. Just kept blocking across with 180, and you know, each pass I would creep up on this guy on both sides, and I was turning too early into that radius, and so I got her blocked out, and I actually had to remove more material. That's why, you know, it was a video ago, but I mean, if you remember this pattern, I had to block this down to get this. I had to block up in this area to continue that radius, and then slowly move my block to try to accommodate that shape. And it worked. Hit it with the DA, no high spots. Everything feels just wonderful. So I was happy with that. And then went down and combed and filled in those voids up in here and down in there, and this area here. And I get a little concerned when the size of the metal is, you know, bigger than a dime, right? You know, there's my finger. You know, that's a little bit bigger than a dime. But this one was getting there. This one was just shadowing. This one was certainly there. And this one was there. So I combed over those spots, and you can see, like in this area here, as I was blocking very gently. Now I'm on 180 grit, so I'm not there's no pressure, and I'm very gently blocking across, and it took all of that out. Even here I did the same thing, and it took all of that out. It is just flat. That one there I blocked very lightly. There you cannot feel that. So I'm good. I'm good right now. This is blocked. It's guide coated. When I scratch, it doesn't leave a low spot in it. It is ready for surfacer. So then after that, then I took my sanding block, cut a piece of, there's a dead sheet. Cut a piece, laid her in there. Okay, sticky back, laid it in, kept it between the channels. You can see when I first showed it, there was Bondo on the ends. I scratched across, put tape on here, just a roll of a 1-inch, not that roll, but it was another roll that right there, 1-inch on each side, so that the wood would ride on the surface, but my paper kicked to the side and I got a couple of grooves. That's another repair, but that repair isn't hard to do. You can see along the bead where I'm exposing metal, same thing on the bottom. I'm starting to expose the metal, so I stopped, and now I want to come in. I can feel some areas where there are voids. You can see small little voids in there. So I'll dress those. This was all 80 grit, but what I can say is, wow, that really, really, really straightened it out. I mean, it really worked out well. Now, this one was the least unmolested, and so this bead transitions right in this range to flat as it widens out, semi-flat as it widens out to follow that very, very large radius. So I need to transition that to that, and I'm still thinking about how I want to do that so I have exact duplicates. This still has way too much material on the end. It's taken down about half its depth, but this transition needs to copy that side, and I'm not yet ready for that because I need to figure out how I'm going to block that. So one of the things I was thinking about is measuring over to a certain distance at where I want that to reach this elevation, and how it works down, come out from the window, because visually that's a placeholder that's going to define that transition area. That needs to be the same on each side, and then however I choose to work down it. But for now, I'll get this groove out of here. Fill any of the little, there's one right under here. And some of it's tape too. I didn't get all the tape off because, that's what that was. There's another one. Anyway, I'll clean that all off. I'm going in for the night, and I'll just come in there and very gently block that with 180. I did not get these areas. There's a couple of pinholes. I actually went through this and hit pinholes too. I hit everything that I could see. Obviously when it's all one color gray or whatever the heck that surfacer is typically gray, when I hit that and that shrinks and cures, I'll see pinholes and I'll get those. After the first coat and first blocking, I'll see those. Second coat, second blocking, it's ready for sealer. So hopefully. So I'll concentrate on this and that and try to get this started around the corner soon. Get the window done, just like I said in the last video. So very, very happy with the results, guys. Very happy with the results, and we will continue to push ahead. Thanks. Okay, first application of that material, and I don't feel it, but I do, I'm exposing right there and right there and right there, and the top side turned out really good. You can see here, you can see along here, where that polyester this stuff glaze. I grabbed all the pinholes, but underneath I'm light. This is a little area where I hit it. I must have over sanded on the 80 grit. So I got to come under here. This turned out good. This turned out good, and then it's a little light over here. So you can kind of, it's hard to see. It feels good. The transition into the body is good, but this is a little rough to the finger. This is good. And then I get back about the same thing. And that's more than likely a result of this radius is sharper than the rest of it. So we'll have to get into that and clean that up. But from the top side down, this is ready for feather primer, the polyester primer. So I'll finish the bottom. We're headed into a weekend, and so my intentions are, of course, to get all this done and start working around the corner. So, all right, guys. So I got this all blocked out. It just turned out wonderful. I did have to come in. This guy here, he was high, so I had to tap him. I just took a punch, a flat punch, and chisel, maybe you can call it, but it was for iron, and tap, 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 tap until I got him down just a little bit. This feels good, and he turned out really nice. He turned out really, really, really nice. So now I'm around the corner. Okay, I got my skim coat on, and just to maybe it's obvious, but you know, a standard run-of-the-mill spreader. Mix it, apply it, and in this case, the nice thing about these is see, you can get a little radius, and just all based on how you hold it. So when you're on the metal here, right, it's just very light, but you can get the, and when you do that, you get this, you know, of course you got some wrinkles in there, but you don't have a big pile anywhere. I mean, I'm so happy with the technology behind a joint compound spreader. You want to get probably the cheapest ones, and why? Because you don't want any rigidity. I do have a good one with a spine on it. Had it for a long time. I used to be a contractor, but that's great for flat. You know, like combing, used it to comb across this thing that has a gentle radius. You can get a little bit of radius in that, but you want to size the panel, so size it to the panel. So that wide one, of course, will work well across the store because I minimize the number of, you know, the overlaps, the ridges that I build into it. And the thing is, it blocks so much quicker, but blocking quicker is the reason why it blocks quicker is because you're getting to the base material quicker. You're not having to take those edges off. And if you imagine a piece of sandpaper, let's say this is the edge of the piece of sandpaper. If you've got a ridge right here that you're working down on the bottom side, that top side is sitting on the material, and so you are working that ridge down, but you're also scratching on the other side of that material. You can try to, you know, do all that, and then all those techniques do work, but in the interest of time and flatness, getting the panel as buttery flat as possible does give you a better finish. This here, where I chopped it, you got to remember there was 3 more inches in here, and that radius didn't line up perfectly, so I threw this in there too. I like to use fiberglass. Nothing on here is a 1/4 of an inch or anything like that, but I like to use fiberglass, especially where I have a weld seam. There's some, you know, whatever controversy out there related to it, even though I'm sealing it completely and all that. I just like fiberglass on a weld seam because I know if there is a pinhole, it's sealed both from the interior and from the exterior, and there is no possibility of moisture getting in there and creating a bubble in the paint. So gonna block this out. You know, I'll get after that too. That's really nothing. It just take it just like these, you know, that's where I chopped it, there and there and there, you know. So thanks, guys.